it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, and do it, and do it, let's live it up, and do it, and do it, and do it, do it, do it, let's do it.
What we're gonna do now is bring up.
Let's do it, let's do it, let's do
Awesome.
it.
There we go. See, there's the interstitial music. Get you geared up. Bring up my good friend, Neil Mohan. Okay. Without further introduction, you know the man, Neil Mohan.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Terry. That was a great discussion. The trends are very interesting. I think I agree with half of the characterization about Google there, and I'll talk about a lot of what I don't agree with. But one thing that we do agree with is your last point around the convergence of TV and digital, and I'll spend a lot of time in the next 10 minutes going through that. But before I get started, I just want to say, I've come back to this conference for the last, 3 or 4 years now, and in whatever form it's been. And as Terry said, it's mainly for the discussion with so many colleagues and friends in the room. Every year I come here and I try to come up with a handful of what I think are kind of really big, bold, crazy predictions about where the industry is headed. And the good news is, thanks to the efforts of everybody in this room, those are grossly underestimating the progress of the industry. So one of the ones that I talked about last time was a full 25% of brands were going to list digital as their favorite medium. It's definitely something that we've thought a lot about at Google, and that felt like a pretty bold claim considering the number was about 0 at the time, 12 months ago. And I'd say that the progress over the course of the last 12 months, and as was witnessed in the new fronts that happened here in the city about 3 weeks ago, including our own Google Brandcast, there's been a sea change in terms of brands' attention around this digital channel. And they're voting with their dollars, which is fantastic news, I think, for everybody in this room. And so from Google's perspective, our biggest priority for this year is really doubling down on that prediction, really trying to make brand not just a favorite medium, digital a favorite medium for a brand, but really the primary medium by which they connect with their consumers. And really, from our standpoint, the way that we think that that's going to get accomplished is through one single thing, which is focusing on the user. It's something that I think folks have heard from Google in the past. It's kind of an obvious thing, but let's face it, when we're sitting in this room, when we're talking amongst ourselves, we speak in ad tech jargon, brand speak all the time, and we often lose sight of the fact that ultimately this is about reaching consumers, reaching users. Think about all of us as users. It's about getting those messages to users, getting them to change their perception about something, and then finally getting them to act. And so a lot of what I'm going to be focusing on this morning is the user. And I'd say that there's really 3 things from our perspective that we think need to happen in order to accomplish this goal in the digital space. The first is really building user loyalty. That's obvious to any brand or marketer out there. What we'd submit to you is that the best way to do that is through choice. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. The second, of course, is that when you've gotten users to engage with your brand, you have to put on a show. How do you give them something that's truly creative, beautiful, interactive, engaging? And the final piece is, how do you develop a set of metrics or measures that are showing whether you're accomplishing that goal in a way where you're measuring what actually matters from a user standpoint? So loyalty. Brands obviously want to build loyalty. From our perspective, user choice, I think, is not just the preferred way of doing that in the digital sphere. I think it's the only way. And think about it from all of our standpoints as consumers. We're in this 24/7 digital world where we have choice every single day across millions of websites, millions of YouTube channels, millions and millions of mobile applications where we can spend our time. And consumers expect the same from the advertising or branding experiences that are being put in front of them. So you take TrueView, for example. TrueView, for those of you that don't know, is our skippable ad format that runs on YouTube. It now represents a full 75% of all ads that you see running on that website. And the great thing about TrueView, of course, is it aligns the interests of consumers, of marketers, and of publishers. So, for example, the drop-off rate on YouTube is 50% less with TrueView ads than it is for standard video advertising that you see across the web. And the really interesting thing is that a full 60% of viewers actually watch the ad all the way through, which is the point at which brands pay for that engagement, which is a phenomenally high number where users are actually raising their hand saying, I want to engage in this content from a brand as opposed to being forced to watch it, which of course is the traditional TV model. And we're such big believers in this model of user choice and user engagement that we think it's something that shouldn't apply to just a single format on a single website. Our goal is to bring that to the internet pervasively across every website, across every mobile application. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about here in a second is this notion of cost per engagement. Terry listed things like CPC, CPM, CPA. I think all of those are great, but they're missing the boat in terms of the way brands should be thinking about how they engage with their consumers. Which brings me to my second point, which is, as I said, user choice and loyalty are one thing, but when you actually get users to engage with your brand, you have to put on a show. You have to make it worthwhile for them to engage. And I think digital has the chance here to really reinvent advertising. This is another big focus for us at Google, which is how do we actually create those true, rich, immersive experiences? So an initiative that we have underway, which some of you may have heard about, is called Art, Copy, and Code. We're working with our media and creative agency partners to really kind of reinvent advertising. I'm going to try an experiment here and actually see if we can cut to a live feed and demonstrate a little bit of what I mean.
Today. As in today. As in right now.
9:27 a.m.
It's a pretty exciting time to be doing what we're all doing. Because people like this, and people like that, are now sitting together with folks like this. And the work they're making isn't like the ads we're used to. It's stuff like this, these, and whatever this is. It's connecting the real world to the web, telling more personal stories with data, and using this stuff to make our lives easier and more fun. And wow, robots. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time.
9:28 a.m.
And imagine what we could make next. Welcome to Art, Copy, and Code.
So that's the idea. We often get lost in these conversations about technology and data and valuations and M&A and what have you. This is what it's really about. It's about creating that connection with consumers. It's about creating something that consumers remember, something that they can truly engage in, something that's actually relevant and useful to them. And we can't lose sight of that. So let me show you a few examples of how this is translating into the media world, because the beauty of digital is that it truly is a medium that offers full sight, sound, and motion combined with true interactivity and accountability at a scale that's frankly unprecedented in terms of the history of advertising. So one of the things that that I alluded to a little bit earlier that we announced late last year is this idea of, can we switch back to the clicker, please? Cost per engagement advertising. And the idea there is to create a mechanism by which brands can actually create those truly immersive experiences, but not do them as one-offs, something that's a sponsorship on a single site or what have you, but do it at true scale, a scale that not only matches television, but actually surpasses it. So engagement ads are, in a nutshell, ads that actually start in standard IAB ad units so that they can scale, but they encapsulate this notion of choice where if a user raises their hand and actually hovers over this ad for 2 seconds, it expands into a canvas that gives the brand 100% share of voice on the page with user-initiated action where the user's chosen to engage with the brand, and that's a blank canvas. The brand can serve up a rich media ad, video ad, a product catalog, a live stream, and oh, by the way, the best part is that the marketer really only pays for that advertising, not on that impression, but when the user raises their hand to engage. So a couple weeks ago, we ran a campaign, happened to be for T-Mobile, where they were promoting the Coachella series of concerts. And let's take a look at how that played out here.
You lost your party hat, seems your lifestyle ain't so worthwhile out there.
So think about this. This is a live feed, a live concert feed being run in a display ad. It happened to run across 60,000 sites across the internet. It engaged 620,000 viewers in this concert series. It brought 500,000 viewers to the Coachella concert that otherwise wouldn't have been there, and it was a phenomenal success from T-Mobile's perspective in terms of a sponsorship opportunity. All live through a display ad running across the internet. But it doesn't have to be just video. Here's another example. It happens to be for Anthropology, a campaign that ran, similar sort of concept, an ad that expands to a fully immersive, rich, beautiful catalog experience, all from a display ad, where the users actually initiated the behavior. They want to engage. Obviously, you can imagine all the possibilities here, e-commerce within a display ad all across the internet at scale, where the user's engaging, either lean forward where they're purchasing products or lean back where they're flipping through the catalog. And you can imagine this experience on desktops, on tablets, etc. And the beauty of all of this is that this works for advertisers. The engagement rates on these types of ads are 3x what you'd see on traditional rich media ads. What's even more interesting is that the engagement time is 2 to 3 times what you'd see on standard rich media ads. And not only do they work for advertisers, they've worked great for our publisher partners as well. So the top 50 sites that have been running these types of rich brand engagements over the course of the last few months are seeing CPMs 2x what they'd see for traditional ads running across their display sites. So it's something that works for marketers, works for publishers, because it works for users. And of course, it doesn't just stop on desktop. Here's an example of a similar concept running on tablets. This happens to be for a paint manufacturer in Denmark, where there's rich interactivity, there's game-like elements, all within the ad in a lean-back experience, and you can imagine the realm of possibilities from the brand's perspective in terms of engaging their users. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to touch on in terms of the second pillar, which is really making the age of digital the age of true digital beauty as it relates to captivating consumers and creating truly memorable experiences. The third thing I want to talk about is how do we actually bring all this together? So, I talked about user choice and loyalty. I talked about this notion of creating rich, beautiful experiences. Brands really need to bring all of this together and measure really what matters here. And this, of course, goes beyond things like impressions and clicks and conversions. Brands really care about 3 things. Did the right audience actually see their message? If they saw their message, did that change their perception? And as a result of that change in perception, did that do anything in terms of changed behavior? That's the reason why we've been investing very heavily in a lot of our brand measurement initiatives, things like active GRP around reach and frequency, where things like the brand surveys product, which is now seamlessly integrated into AdWords so that you can measure the impact on things like brand recall and awareness for campaigns that run across the Google Display Network, across all of our publisher partners, and across YouTube, of course. But all of this, of course, starts with the first point that I raised, which is, did a human being actually see your ad in the first place? And so a lot of our investment in this area has actually started with a technology called ActiveView, which many of our publisher partners and advertiser partners in the audience already know about. But this is a viewability standard that we're building natively into all of our products step by step across the entire DoubleClick suite as well as across our media properties. And the idea is to truly measure at scale whether an actual person saw the ad or not. And here's just a little example of kind of how it works. It's something that we've worked on jointly with the IAB, the 3MS initiative, and the results are interesting. It's obvious why this makes sense from an advertiser or agency standpoint. What wasn't so obvious is how does this actually work for publishers. And so we've done some research, and it's really shown a number of things. One of the most interesting is that there's a tremendous amount of value below the fold. For example, ads that started below the fold but come into view, human view at some point during the browsing process, if they're on screen in human view for greater than 1 second, they have a 21 times higher likelihood of being interacted with than ads that are on the screen for less than 1 second. And there's a slew of statistics like that show the real value of actually having this type of viewability standard pervasive throughout the industry from a measurement perspective. In fact, we care so much about measurement that another thing that I'd like to announce today is we're launching something called the DoubleClick Benchmark Tool. So those of you that have been in the industry for a while know that DoubleClick's been known throughout the history of the industry for releasing its annual industry benchmarks. It's something that I get asked a lot about. I know a lot of the folks in the room, a lot of our agency and publisher partners use this tool to do analysis for their business and help make business decisions in terms of trends that are occurring across the industry. So what this tool actually does is it takes that annual static report and turns it into something that's real-time and up-to-date. So you can now all go to this tool and pull up-to-date metrics for the entire industry around things like interaction rates, video completion rates, engagement rates, and slice and dice them by things like country, ad format, size, channel, what have you. And so it's something that we're excited about. We think it's something that'll add value to the conversation that's occurring in the industry. We'd love to get your feedback on it, and also other types of trends or characteristics you'd like to see in this tool that would help your businesses or your partners' businesses. In terms of moving the industry, speaking of moving the industry forward and industry trends, another thing I just wanted to highlight really quickly, and I'm going to make a plug here, Terry, is our upcoming Digital Media Technology Conference. This is Google's largest digital conference of the year. The good news is that it's free and it's open to all of our partners to participate in via live screen. You can see the URL here. In fact, Terry was the inaugural MC last year. And so this is happening in a couple of weeks. So I just wanted to put that on all of your radar screens for all of your teams and employees to participate in as well. So bringing it back home, as I said, our focus this year really is around cracking that brand advertising nut, making digital really work for brands. And from our perspective, it's about putting users front and center. If we do that, all of us win. Marketers, advertisers, agencies, publishers, all of us. And it's really through these three pillars, by creating true loyalty through consumer choice, giving them wow experiences in terms of true creativity, and then finally measuring all of this by a set of metrics that really matter for brands. If we do this, I think the opportunity before us is not to just incrementally increase the size of our industry, not just to double it, but there's no reason why we couldn't make it grow 10x over the course of the next 5 years. That's the reason why we're investing extremely heavily in this. It's something that I'm excited to work with all of you on accomplishing over the course of the coming years. So thank you, everybody.
So I've asked Neil to stay on stage and take a few questions. This is your shot at asking Google whatever question. Make them good ones because we have a little bit of time. But I want to start it off.
All right.
My friend, you've come a long way from the click, from the search bar. I mean, that is absolute beautiful stuff. I got to imagine Madison Avenue's jumping up and down over this stuff.
It's certainly been an evolution for us. The feedback from, as I said, over the course of the last 12 months, 18 months has been phenomenal, not just from Madison Avenue, but from all of their clients all across the globe. in terms of the brands themselves. And the good news for me is that it's been something that's been positively received not just by our agency and advertiser partners, but by all of our publisher partners, starting with the smallest sites to the largest media companies in the world that we work with.
So I love the focus on the user. We've been saying the same thing at Luma, that the consumer, we say consumer, you say user, that they're in control and they need to be taken into account for in terms of formats. I did notice one word missing from your entire presentation, native. What are your thoughts on what you're doing is beautiful and immersive, but in one hand is more traditional marketer messages. How do you think the whole content native world will play out?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And so, I think one of the challenges is this name that we refer to as with display in general. From my perspective, display is everything that can run across content, whether it's a banner ad, rich media, video. You guys talked about mobile being pervasive. All of that is display to me. And native advertising is interesting, but a lot of the technology, the underpinnings, the plumbing for native advertising is a lot of the same technology that's used for display advertising. So I think the challenge to technology companies like Google is how do you actually create native models? And so, a lot of the native advertising models you're seeing on the internet today are being delivered through the DoubleClick platform by repurposing the display technology that already exists.
Yep.
And so how do we actually create these native immersive experiences for our users, but do it in a way that can actually scale so that they're not always these one-off type experiences?
So it's kind of like a merger between the ad server and the CMS. Couple of questions. I need you to wait for the mic. You say your name and your company, and then fire away your question quickly.
Hey, Neil. Adam Archik with Kahuna. Quick question. Engagement ads feel like utopia. I'm wondering if a bottleneck is making the creative, and if so, how are you helping your customers both internally and externally with that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question. One of the issues has always been that you can come up with this great, beautiful, creative concept, but it takes 1,000 hours to do, and it can only run on like 3 websites because of all the customization. So the idea here is to actually create something that can scale. So the technology behind what you see there are actually templates. So they're templates on which you can layer all the kind of the rich branding and customization, swap in and out videos, all those types of things, but can do it in a way that's repeatable and is a lot faster to build. These all happen to be built on DoubleClick Studio templates, but the format is an open format, and we work with other technologies to get ads up and running. But that's a great question, and it's the reason why we actually start these units in something that is standard to give you that scale, and then once that canvas opens up, you have a lot more flexibility.
Next question.
Hey Neil, Srini from Goldspot Media. It's a great example of CPE for the online model, but there is no hover on mobile. So how do you make this measurement consistent?
Yeah, so obviously the call to action and the interaction models are different on mobiles, whether they're tablets, smartphones, etc. So we have a slew of flavors of this cost per engagement model that we'll be releasing on tablets and mobiles that has the same concept where advertisers and marketers really only pay for that truly engaged user, but the engagement action is different. It could be a swipe, it could actually be movement on a tablet, and all those different types of things that you can do in a mobile environment that you can't do on a desktop.
Super. All right, we'll go to our last question, and then...
Hi, Neil. Ujjal Kohli from Rhythm New Media. I'm guessing it must be the case that skippable video ads can support the economics of the sort of content that they're being put in front of on YouTube. But can they support the economics of the kind of content that traditional media companies put on television?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the TrueView format is something that we're actually taking beyond YouTube. We're actually running with a number of our largest media partners who have video content that they'd like to monetize with TrueView. And we're seeing the same sort of monetization success from a publisher perspective on those large partners that we're seeing on YouTube. So the challenge for us is really how do we scale this to our partners as quickly as possible.
Terrific. Well, listen, Neil, so this DoubleClick event that they hold is really something else next month. I encourage you to tune in. Last year we had a lot of fun. Neil had me there as the MC, and I was Ricky Gervais. And I took the piss out of Go-Go and had a great time with it. And you know how I know that I did a fantastic job? Is because unlike in the Golden Globes, I wasn't invited back. So I was absolutely effective. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
That was some pretty cool stuff. And for more cool stuff, I want to invite up Blake Chanley and Kevin Weil to have a conversation. A fireside chat, if you will. Come on up, guys. Blake, Kevin. So that was some cool stuff.
I like the Ricky Gervais.
You like the Ricky Gervais?
friend.
I could actually just continue like that if you like.
Do you think we could?
Yeah. No worries. Fantastic. I can go all day. So, I've always thought for fireside chats it'd be nice if you had a fire. There we go. Well, audio would be great. So there we go. There's a fire. There's crackling fire.
Oh,
See?
that's
You like
lovely.
that? That's
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, good.
I feel very at home.
And kill the fire. And kill the fire. Man, you know, these remote control fireplaces never work. So, interesting stuff on the display side, but you guys each run a large, we call them real-time giants. I suppose we could call them real-time, we could call them social, we could call them native. There's a lot of labels we could put on the platforms that you guys have built. I want to have a conversation with the ecosystem, which is largely represented in this room, about your platforms and how your kind of products integrate and how these people can take advantage of partnerships. Blake, you run global partnerships. Kevin, you're on the product side, making sure that you've got products that generate revenue for Twitter. I thought a good way to start would be maybe you could just describe the various APIs and partnership programs that each of you have, just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, so, wow. I could spend the whole time doing
Well,
that. I'll try and do it, and I'll try and
shortly,
do it quickly.
please.
So, yeah, we are a partnership company. I mean, first and foremost, if you ask Mark or Cheryl or anybody, we've got less than 5,000 employees compared to some of our big competitors who have 10x that, right? So we leverage and rely on our partnerships, and I wanted to start by saying a huge thank you to the vast majority of folks in this room who do participate and partner with us in a range of ways. The program's around 5 years old now, our PMD program, and it's evolved from a very small program that represented a small part of our business and was kind of reactionary into probably one of the most strategic platforms we have. It represents a significant percentage of our revenue base, and it allows us to scale. And it's matured in the structure and the way we approach it. It's sophisticated in its badging concept. Partners are truly our partners. They're involved often in product development and helping us as we launch products. An example of that would be FBX, which we launched about a year ago, which a bunch of folks in the room are part of, which is our RTB platform. And we launched that through our channel. Like our sales teams around the world were not allowed to touch that. It was done 100% through the folks in this room and some others. So we view partnerships as core to our business on both the user side as well as the business side. And it's been a tremendous success for us.
Kevin, give us the Twitter partnership lineup.
Oh, businesses have been a part of Twitter since day one, and developers have also been a key part of Twitter's growth. We've had one of the biggest and most successful APIs basically since Twitter began. That's evolved now into a streaming API where businesses, even folks like Sam from Mass Relevance, who's here in the room, building great integrations with TV and with brands using our streaming API. And folks doing everything from going all the way to building real-time event detection out of events on Twitter that they then use to inform everything from news stations to hedge funds. These are all being built off of the 400+ million tweets a day on Twitter. We've been building out this in-tweet media platform we call Twitter Cards. So publishers are able to build into Twitter to build rich media experiences within tweets. So anytime anybody tweets out content from your site, you can build a great engaging experience for users. And then also we just released in the last 3 months or so our advertising API. So we have 5 partners that we announced about 3 months ago. We are working on scaling that ads API, building the right processes so that as our platform grows and evolves, we bring along our ads developers in the right way. But we've seen some amazing things already built on that platform, and we're super excited to have the folks in this room start to build on top of our advertising API as well.
And you've got a new product coming out, right? You want to break some news here and make an announcement?
I do, actually. Although I was going to announce AT and Twitter, you kind of stole my thunder, dude.
Damn. I'm working on that.
So Twitter's always been about 140 characters. It's that constraint was born out of mobile and SMS, which is how Twitter came to be. But increasingly, that 140 characters is becoming a caption onto a much richer experience. You can embed photos within tweets. You can watch videos. When you tweet a link to an article, you see the photo, the title, and a synopsis of the article right within the tweet. A few months ago, we announced product listings within tweets, so you can see ratings, prices. We have app cards now within tweets, so you can download an app straight from a tweet if you don't have the app. If you do have the app, you can link directly. You can do deep linking from our app to your app right from within a tweet, right from within Twitter. Today, we're taking the next step, and we're introducing the first Twitter card built entirely for marketers. We call it the lead gen card. So what this is, from the user experience, it's super simple. When you expand the tweet, you'll see a rich call to action, whether that's download a white paper, learn more about a service, that kind of thing. And you see a single button that you can click to provide your name, your email address, and your Twitter handle to the marketing partner. The key thing about it for Twitter, for us, and for users is that it works natively across every client. On the web, whether you're on the web, mobile, a tablet, it's a single experience, and there's no mobile landing page, there's no filling in details. For the user, it's a single click because we already know your email address, we already know who you are on Twitter. We've been running this in beta. We've seen some fantastic cost per lead numbers from our advertisers. So this is launching today. We're super excited about it, and really interested to see what you guys do to reach our 200+ million active users.
There you go, folks. It's Twitter lead gen, breaking news, and I'm sure that'll be tweeted now. So Neil talked a lot about brand immersive, really rich advertising experiences, and obviously, Google built a business on the backs of a more bottom of the funnel solution, and has now evolved into these upper funnel solutions, I like to call them. What is from your product perspective, from your partnerships with the universe? What are the marketer objectives that you're going after? Is it commerce? Is it retargeting? Are you looking for brand dollars? How do your products fit into the ecosystem of objectives?
So, I think that it's funny. We often kind of get pitted against one another. And I think a lot of us believe in what Neil was talking about, right? And the role that digital plays in the broader kind of media planning spectrum and some of the data you shared earlier, right? We play, and I hate to say we play through the whole funnel, but we do, right? So we've got over 1.1 billion users. We've got daily active users of well over 650 million. We've got 750 million mobile users, which is up 250 million from last year, right? We had 50% growth in that. And it's around connecting people with brands in a way that's consistent with both consumers' expectations, people's expectations, and brands, right? And it's designed, some of the core KPIs that Neil referenced earlier around reach, frequency, and then creating some kind of a behavioral change or shift is exactly where we're going.
Yep.
And whether it's upper funnel and we're trying to reach with big brand messages that drive some kind of offline behavior, and we measure that very, very effectively, and brands do that very well, all the way through to engagement. And we were talking about engagement. I've been with the company 6 years now. We were talking about engagement years ago around kind of cost per engagement, and everybody at that time dismissed it, but now we seem to have come full circle. All the way through to last touch kind of attribution, like last click attribution. We have programs and products all the way through that funnel. So as I'd imagine a bunch of folks would.
Kevin, Twitter obviously works for brands like Oreo.
Yeah.
What's the spectrum of marketer objectives that you have products for?
At Twitter, we say we're a bridge, not an island. So you see Twitter connect with every bit of marketing that businesses do. So at the top of the funnel with brand marketers, you see things like hashtags on TV. 50% of the commercials in last year's Super Bowl had a hashtag. People are connecting the TV experience to the experience in digital, especially with Twitter, as you said, being the second screen for TV. And we're continuing on with that through these. We're doing some really innovative programs with networks where we're starting to bring real-time highlights and replays to Twitter in conjunction with a brand who runs a very Twittery 6-second pre-roll. So I don't know if you guys saw March Madness, when there are 6 games going on during the March Madness, the beginning of the tournament. They were clipping, 10 seconds after there's a big dunk in a game that you aren't watching because you're at work. 10 seconds later, there's a tweet on Twitter with a real-time highlight with a pre-roll from, in that case, it was Coke Zero or AT&T, just a 6-second, very quick pre-roll, and you get something, you learn about something that happened just a second ago on Twitter. Amazing experience. At the same time, we've got 400 million tweets a day, and with every one of those public tweets, users are expressing intent. They want something, they're interested in something, they like something. So we released a product not long ago called keyword targeting, which allows marketers to actually reach users based on the content of their public tweets and to leverage the intent people are expressing.
Yep.
With things like that, with things like this lead gen card that we just announced today, we're reaching the bottom of the funnel as well. So,
how important is, in a mobile environment in particular, how important is it that your products and your flow are in real time? So the recency of a tweet and people taking action on it, on your various platforms is obviously Twitter is a real time. How important is the real time recency of a post in terms of user engagement, or are you more?
Are you talking about from a brand perspective?
No. Just in terms of the activity, the engagement, the retweets, the reposts, the shares.
I mean, the device, the mobile device is a real-time device, right? So, we have we talk about being mobile first, and we talk about all that kind of stuff. And I think that for the first time, we really are seeing that come to being. And the way brands are interacting, and through a lot of folks in this room, we work closely with our partners and our PMDs in developing out mobile solutions for brands. And brands are able to reach people at scale with relevant content, right in the newsfeed. And it's a very, very powerful environment where people are spending an enormous amount of time. I mean, it's 25 to 30% of all mobile time is on Facebook right now. And that's a powerful platform. And we've gone from, you referenced it earlier, from not having a mobile business a year ago to 30% of our revenue and scaling fast in mobile. Right. I mean, we're on a multi-billion-dollar run rate within 12 months in mobile. Like we think it's just the tip of the iceberg. Right. But that's because brands are starting to get an idea, and the developer community is starting to get an idea of what works within the mobile environment versus desktop versus TV, and in conjunction with some of the great stuff that Kevin referenced earlier. I think we're just literally at the beginning of a great innovation cycle.
Kevin, obviously, Twitter is very much real time, relevant. Is there a value in the archive?
Is there a value in the archive of tweets?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we think a lot about is that marketing, especially, is a series of now moments. Mm-hmm. So you've always had the who and the what when you think about marketing, and Twitter is bringing the when. We do think a lot about real time. Your Twitter stream is, what just is happening. So when you brought up the Oreo example during the Super Bowl, when the blackout happened during the Super Bowl, when the lights all went out in the middle of the game, within 2 minutes, Oreo had their famous tweet up there saying, "You can still dunk in the dark." A minute later, Walgreens responded. They had a promoted tweet, actually said, "Walgreens, we sell candles." And you had 5 or 6, I think, who was it? Bud Light responded and said something about how, we swear we didn't stage this just to talk about our new Black Corona beer. So people are capitalizing on the real time. They're realizing that there's shared context around the real time, especially in an event like the Super Bowl. You don't have to say, hey, there was a blackout and now here's my message. You know that people are experiencing that at the same time, and you can provide some amazing marketing messages
I think it's...
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
'Cause
sure.
I think that's right. I think that that's requiring a very different mindset at agencies and clients, right? And that's not the easiest thing to overcome. And there are some companies that are doing it well, right? Some of which were referenced just now. And we've seen the same thing, right, with publishing strategies and real-time publishing strategies.
I think it's turning all these marketers into comedians.
Yeah, and we saw it a few years ago where Facebook was, the thing that everybody referenced. Go to our Facebook page, and we're now starting to see that really push hard with Instagram, where people are using similar hashtag type approaches on Instagram. And I suspect next year, there'll be a balance between Instagram and Twitter and somebody else, right? I think marketing community is getting there. The question will be, are there models going to allow them to scale that? Right, because it's all about scale.
So I totally agree. Final question relates to how you relate to the ecosystem. Obviously, you partner with media companies, you partner with data companies, and you partner with technology companies. And I'm interested in how you approach, I guess, to boil it down, since this is an investment banks conference, buy versus build. When you have to do these partnerships, you obviously leverage, you both said, your platform companies that need the ecosystem in order to fulfill your objectives. But how do you think about what we need to have ourselves versus what we're fine with via APIs?
Sure. At Twitter, the main thing that I think about from the product side of our advertising platform is building a great advertising platform that users love. We have, I think, one of the only advertising platforms around where you commonly hear, well, I don't click on ads usually, but I like promoted tweets. People retweet our promoted tweets throughout the day. We average 1% to 3% engagement rate. And kind of one of the pillars of our platform is that we don't want to show you an ad unless we think it's going to be great for you. And that's what really resonates with users about the advertising that we're building. So for me, anything that extends that, anything that can add to that experience is something that we're very interested in. We bought a company called Bluefin at the end, or just at the beginning of this year in January. Those guys did some amazing things bringing Twitter and TV together. We think the Twitter and TV story is extremely strong, that TV makes Twitter better. People are using Twitter as a second screen while they're watching TV, and that Twitter makes TV better, where there's a social commentary happening. 95% of all public commentary about TV happens on Twitter. And because of that, we're actually driving TuneIn back to TV. We felt those guys really had an amazing set of technology around social TV analytics. And we wanted to bring that into Twitter.
I think the Bluefin acquisition was great. We did some work with them before you guys acquired them. And some of the output.
You didn't put in a bid? You weren't interested?
I'm not going to comment on that. That's good, but it was a great acquisition. I think the work that Bluefin was doing was great. I think that we saw some amazing results coming out of that as well. The way we look at it, it's really, I mentioned earlier, we are a partnership-first company.
Yep.
We've opened up our APIs from the very, very beginning. We kind of feel that we pioneered some of the space with regards to that. We have not extended off of Facebook. We don't intend to extend off of Facebook. I know that was one of the other things that people talk about, even with the Atlas acquisition.
Face sense.
But the way we look at it is we're going to continue to build and innovate, right? And a great example of this is we've got our developer community. They're out building really cool stuff on top of our ads API, our pages API, our apps APIs, our insights APIs, right? And they're building robust businesses. Some of them have been acquired. Some of the people sitting in this room, got great multiples in the back end of it. They're moving towards acquisitions or partners. The reason we combined our group and put me on top of both that, as well as I also run all our agency relationships around the world, and our data and audience partnerships, and I saw Dana from Axiom in here earlier, is we think it's all coming together, right? And we don't plan on building that platform. We think if we provide the right environment, the right structure, the right technology, that the folks in this room can innovate much faster than we will. Now, that the warning I'll put on top of that, and it's interesting, we had our product guys present to one of our councils, our developer councils a few weeks ago, and what the product guys said was, if you're building businesses on top of our platform because we have bad products, that's a bad business idea. Right? Because we're going to continue to innovate on our products. So Power Editor, when we launched it, when we updated it 2 years ago, basically a lot of the PMDs said, wow, that challenges everything we're doing. And we said, you have to innovate on top of it. The key is giving the roadmap. and allowing them to build and invest in technologies that are going to complement what we're doing versus compete with what we're doing.
So the key sentence I heard there was Facebook is not building off of Facebook. Might that be Facebook is not building off of Facebook, comma, ... yet?
I wouldn't say never, but I wouldn't say no.
Got it.
Right, from a priority perspective. I mean, Atlas is something that the acquisition of Atlas allows us to start measuring off of Facebook.
Yep.
And we feel that's really important to raise the standards of measurement. And so Atlas will be a core component of doing that.
So there was an example where you said, here's a capability we need in order to enable our product development, and you leveraged M&A in order to garner that capability.
Yep.
Will we see more of that?
We do a lot of acqui-hires. We do acquisitions. We don't do big acquisitions for the most part. Instagram was probably an exception on that. But we're not, if we find folks, a group of engineers that we think are really, really talented and can enhance our company, then we typically will be open to that idea.
Terrific. I'd like to thank Blake and Kevin.
Cool.
Thank you.
So, fascinating stuff.